So there's this thing that humans do. We have this tendency to accumulate evidence that proves and reinforces the things that we believe are true about the world. You've probably heard about the term confirmation bias. It's a psych term for a phenomenon that we've been researching since the 60s. And I think that these days, most people probably hear the term confirmation bias in a political context. And it's usually about how people with differing opinions are deluding themselves with facts that confirm their preconceived notions about something. And usually, these are things that we disagree with them about. And without getting too deeply into the profound irony in that, I want to talk about confirmation bias, this process of accumulating evidence that reinforces our beliefs about the world, to talk about how we are collectively staying very small and avoiding growth, and how we mistake what is magic about our ability to communicate, to speak, as something that's just ordinary and benign. Basically, today's episode is about learning how to completely change your life and what is possible for you by changing the way that you speak. This is a really important episode for me, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So stay with me. This is Reclaiming the Gentleman. I'm Dave Lashansky. So the other day, I'm walking my dog, and I hear this huge crash. And I look over, and I see this guy who's putting a dresser into a truck. It seems like he's refurbishing it or transporting it somewhere. And he is clearly upset. He's cussing. He's really bummed that he dropped this dresser. It's clearly broken. And I mean, he's really clearly upset. He's bent over this dresser with his head in his hands, seemingly sobbing, or maybe just in his misery. And I walk over to him and I say, "Hey man, you need some help." And the first thing he says to me is, "Oh, now someone wants to help me. People have been walking by me this whole time, and now someone wants to help me." And my first reaction to this was that I wanted to get away. Honestly, I wanted to get away from this man. And it wasn't that I wanted to be thanked or that I expected him to be, so happy someone's here offering help. But it was that I immediately remembered the ways I used to respond in these kinds of situations too. And I remembered how addictive it was to compound my misery. And because I remembered that, and because I've done the work to really hone in on what I create in my life with my words, I wanted to get away from this interaction. So what ended up happening was I helped him lift it into the truck. He's like, "Thanks, man." He drives away. But I'm left really sitting with this idea of how our words shape what happens to us. Because before I began to inquire and learn to integrate my trauma, my wounding, my inner child, before I really began my journey of intentional self-development, I thought that I was brilliant at connecting with people. I felt like no matter where I was or who I was with, that I would find a way to win people over. I could make friends with billionaires and the unhoused in the same walk. And I could walk away and know people were talking about what a delight I was. And what I was in reality was a master manipulator. But what I was doing was not really about specific selfish ends. And I say that mainly because I don't think I ever really learned how to turn what I was doing into a lucrative or power harnessing practice. But I did all of this pretty much on autopilot. But honestly, it felt more like an addiction, like a craving. Like I couldn't be okay if I didn't know that people had good feelings about me. And one of the most powerful tools I used to get people to feel a specific way about me, to get people to have positive feelings about me is what I imagined. One of my coveted moves was self-abuse. By being self-deprecating, by calling out the things I don't like about myself, I don't accept about myself, the things I do poorly, and I'd even make things up if I had to. I would put myself in a poor light to make other people happy and comfortable. I was convinced that this was a generous act, a way of connecting quickly and meaningfully by making myself out to be imperfect and flawed. Because what this did was it invited other people to do the same. And in my head, if none of us were perfect or flawless, we could all be close. Right? And I think a lot of people do actually think that way. But what happened was that one day I was with a group of friends, old friends, and after we were hanging out, my amazing soon-to-be wife asked me about this behavior. And this was years ago, but she'd been listening to me talk to my friends for a while at that point. We'd been dating for maybe 2-3 years. And she said to me, "Why do you always talk like that around them? Why do you say things like, oh, I suck at that, or oh, I'm awful? Why do you degrade yourself like that?" She was genuinely confused and genuinely interested in why I was doing this. And she continued by saying that when I talk like that, it does change how I am, right? The person she was describing that she was hearing when she heard me talk like this was someone who was really anxious and eager to please. And the effect of that was it made her, the woman I was spending so much time with, the woman I claimed to love, made her feel like she wasn't safe. Like at any moment, I'd throw her character under the bus to make other people happy. And now, while this is pretty classic people-pleaser behavior, what I want to bring to your attention for this episode is this. The words I was using to connect, to have fun, to be likable, had the power to change how others perceived me and felt around me. And yes, because I was making fun of myself or talking about what I wasn't good at, other people did feel really safe around me. But it had this separate effect too. And this is a really important one. Because when I wanted to connect around things that were truly sacred to me, not things that were benign or unimportant that I was fine making fun of myself about, but things that are really valuable to me, things that are sacred to me, things like the way I feel listening to my favorite piece of music or watching a great blue heron, my favorite bird that I have tattooed on my arm, fly across the sky. When I wanted to talk about those things, which was rare, it felt so uncomfortable and so charged that I never actually was able to connect with people in a way that felt good around those things, the things that mattered to me, the things that call me into a state of being that I find really juicy and fun, the thing that now I know is a really beautiful avenue for connection when I'm talking to other people. But what my partner was bringing to my attention was this: that by using my words, that by speaking about myself in a way that was sacrificing my character, by degrading myself to make others comfortable, I was never actually comfortable standing as me. I was never comfortable giving any meaningful or unique shape or dimension to who I am, which meant that I never let other people in. I never let others access the depths of me in the way that I now can't live without. And I know that I'm not alone in this practice because I hear it all the time. It is commonplace. We love to connect by speaking poorly of ourselves, by casting our lives in sad, tragic color. We use poison words against ourselves, against our dreams, thinking that it is opening us up to connection, when really it's just making the air around us feel really heavy. And the key thing that I want you to take away from this episode is that your words hold power. Unimaginable power. Sacred power. Dare I say even magic power. Think about what it's like to spend time around people that are always complaining about something, about how they've been wronged, how they feel, what's happening in the world. Imagine the cumulative effects of spending all of your time with that person. And if this is your reality, I urge you to think about what it would be like if you were to spend time around people who didn't talk, think, act that way. And you might be hearing this and thinking that the alternative isn't all that much better. The people that are always happy or airy-fairy and living in la la land is no better. But the alternative doesn't have to be joy and ungrounded lightness jumping off the walls. Here's the alternative that I think we can practice bringing into being more. And that's this, simply, that your words are potent, and that for the sake of what it brings into your world, it actually serves you to believe that your words are magic. And if you bristle at the word magic, just stay with me for a bit. Because I do think, even if that word is hard for you, it actually serves us to believe that our words hold immense power. Yes, magical power. It's not about creating instant change. It's not about waving your wand and suddenly everything's different. But it is about the magic to create a feeling in the air around you. No matter how you feel about magical or mystical thinking, we all know what it's like to walk into a room where there's tension. And we all know what it's like to enter into a space where there's love and genuine kindness flowing freely. We understand at a felt level this sensory experience of how powerful the frequencies in a space can feel. But often we forget that we have the agency to create that, to speak those good, powerful vibrations into being. And honestly, I think the reason we lose sight of this ability that we have is that our pain, the bad things that happen to us in the world, that have happened to us in our past, and the ways that our subconscious protective measures operate, it helps us to believe that we're not this powerful, that we can't change a space with our words, or we can't change our life with our words. We make sense of the horrible injustices of the world, of tragedy, of trauma, by believing that we are too small and incapable to bring better things into being, to change them. But what if we have way more control? And what if the most powerful place you could start to enact that control is with your words? And I think most of us imagine that we have to start with our thoughts, which is way harder, right? And I think it's a worthy endeavor, and maybe the ultimate endeavor is to control your mind. But long before we control our thoughts and our mind, we get to start by controlling our words. Start by living with exceptional intention around what you say, around the vibrations you bring into being with your voice. Live with intention around the world you create with your language. And not just for an afternoon or a day to prove that this doesn't work, right? You can't expect your whole world to change overnight. But giving this practice time yields results unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. Because for me, when I started to really pay attention to the words I used about myself, about the situations that I was in, about my life and who I claimed to be and where I claimed to want to go, eventually, when I spoke with intention about myself and my situations and the future that I care to create, I started to feel so much better about who I am. I started to believe in the words that I was speaking. Things like, I'm good at showing up. I'm good at making promises and following through. I'm really great at my job. I am a caring man. I'm a good chef. Over time, what happened to me was that I came to love myself with my words the way that I really wanted others to love me, the way that I was craving others to speak to me when I was speaking poorly about myself. What happened when I changed the language I use about myself was that I came to see myself the way I longed to be seen. And when I did that, I was showing others how to do that too. It was like magic. I created the very things I wanted by speaking them into existence. Not overnight, but over time. And so to close out this really, really important episode, I want to give you a few things to consider. Think about this. If your words determine the flavors of your life, what words do you use now that you're ready to stop using? And what words would you use more, knowing that the more you speak them into existence, the stronger their presence becomes? And what is the most courageous thing you'll commit to bringing into being with your words? Send me your answers. Comment them on Spotify, email them, DM me on Instagram, whatever it is. There's links to all that in the show notes. I want to hear, what are the words you're going to start using? What are the words you're going to stop using? And what are the words you're going to use to conjure the future that you care to create? Because you're doing it, whether you're aware of it or not. We all are. There's so much more to say on this episode, and I'd love to bring in some experts who really are brilliant at this. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Reclaiming the Gentle Man. There are amazing things happening later this month and in September. If you are someone who is interested in learning more about the 21-day journey, Reclaiming the Gentle Man, please get in touch. I also have space for one more coaching client these days, so please get in touch. I would love to serve you. Let's find out if we are a good fit. You can get in touch with me on my website or on Instagram. Again, check the show notes for those links. As always, this episode was produced by me through my production company, David Benjamin Sound, LLC. If you're interested in starting a podcast, please get in touch there. You can find us at davidbenjaminsound.com. Wishing you a brilliant rest of your week and hoping that you are wielding your magic with great intention, great care, and great results. I'll see you in a week.